Welcome to the inaugural session of Season 4. I'm Sumit, your host, but also I'm only going to be listening, not spending much time saying, because we have such an important and illustrious panelist here. I just hope you all not only enjoy this 1 hour of great interaction, but also have a great takeaway. A lot of us dream, many of us do things, but there are not very many people who know what to do to reach their dreams. And this is a panel who's done this over and over again. I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with Preeti ji, learn from her inspirational stories with the work that she, her husband, and her NGO is doing in partnership with Tech Mahindra Foundation. So Preeti ji, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Karoona and Sandy, you will hear them, their inspirational stories. These are two women who just inspiring you. You will be in awe listening to their stories. And who better than Dipali, our very own fearless leader, who I learn everything when I get in a call, be it how to express yourself, dream big, and execute big. So without further ado, Dipali, please take it away.
Thank you, Sumit. Karuna, Preeti, and Sandra, I'm very much delighted to have you here. I feel lucky that I'm getting a chance to moderate this panel, and I'm looking forward to having an amazing interaction. So the way I'll go about is I'm going to ask a question to one of you, and then if the other two of you want to chime in, I would really appreciate it, because I'm sure every question that we have can have a different point of view when it comes to a response. So let's start with you, Karoona.
Hello.
Hi. It's been a delight speaking with you and getting to know you, Karoona. So you talk a lot about mentorship in your LinkedIn posts, and I read a few articles where, being a mentor has been a forte with you. So tell us more, what does it take to be a good mentor? And what is the upside of the role, especially as a woman leader?
I think, first of all, I think mentorship is really, really needed in the community. And I say this not only as a mentor, but also as a mentee. And I think especially for women leaders, what I have learned, I think, through my mentoring over the last few years is that there are questions that women typically will have that they will only ask a woman mentor, and I think that's quite an interesting thing to focus on as well, because alongside mentoring women, I have also done mentoring for people from minority ethnic communities to help them with building their own careers. And part of the reason why those forums are very interesting to me, and I think very much needed, is because when you think about leadership, a lot of the collateral out there and a lot of the thinking out there is very much developed for the default, which in this world tends to be male and white. And there are certain aspects of leadership which women will come forth and ask me whether does this apply to me. The example I always quote is, the trend of be authentic. As a leader, you need to be authentic. And I've had that question thrown at me before to say, well, if I'm authentic given my gender and given my ethnic background, does that have the same impact and the same results as it would for example, a white male? And I think that's a very interesting dynamic to think about, because I do think a lot of what's out there at the moment in terms of literature, in terms of best practice, etc., for leadership is very much developed for a certain community, and we kind of take it for granted that it's going to work for everybody, but it does not necessarily, and it may need a bit of more thinking through. So I think from that perspective, mentorship is really required. What's required to be a good mentor? I think first and foremost, listening. I think listening skills, being able to actively listen first before fixing things for people, genuinely listening with the aim to understand rather than seeking to, what am I going to say in reply to you, Pali, when you ask your question. I think listening skill is very, very important. I think compassion and empathy is very important as well. And I think to a certain degree, being okay with saying, I don't know, is and exploring topics with the mentees. Yeah, I think that makes a good mentor.
Thank you, Karuna. I think active listening is so hard, right? It's one of the hardest things to do. It has to be a very disciplined thing to do. So totally agree. I struggle with it.
It is also, I genuinely believe active listening is one of the biggest, most genuine gifts that you can give somebody, is to truly be there and listen to them with no agenda whatsoever.
Thank you. Any thoughts, Sandra, Preeti?
Yeah, the one thought I have, and I guess I'll tag along to the listening piece. And I've recently had this conversation with one of our affinity groups, is, one of the important things is that the mentors learn a lot, right? And that there is a gift to the mentor too. And you have to enter into that relationship, realizing that. And I think that's how you really solidify and make the relationship much more meaningful.
Mentorship, I think, is the topmost take wherever we are talking about learning or teaching. I think mentorship is how the world goes around. I would like to bring a different prospect, that whoever I am, wherever I am today, whatever I'm doing today, has been because I've been a very good mentee. I've made everybody my mentor, everything my mentor. And being a good mentee also is a very important part. I do agree with the listening part when you're a mentor, because we want to say so much. So it is very, very important. I also like to tag on to that. But I feel that it's very important, while we are mentoring, we need to be on the other side of the table at the same time as well. So
every mentor can be a mentee. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Preeti. That was a good perspective. Sandy, my next question is for you. You are recognized both as a diversity champion and have been a very vocal advocate for it. While D&I has become a mainstream topic and has its upsides, there's a lot of negative feedback that is spinning around. And there are certain traditional groups and sections that feel excluded. What is your viewpoint? How do you as a leader address these?
Taking a step back, for DE&I efforts to be successful, all groups need to feel like they're being heard. But at the same time, all groups need to feel accountable. If you don't have that, then you're not going to have success in terms of DE&I. I've used a variety of tools, measures to make sure that people feel like they're heard, and no matter from what viewpoint they're coming from, right? So we have surveys. So I very, very heavily leverage our employee NPS. We also have an employee survey that helps us capture a lot of sentiment that we can target specifically, especially as it relates to areas of concern. And data is your friend from this perspective. You really need those data points so that you can really, really ensure that you are creating a safe environment. I'm also a very, very strong advocate of our affinity groups. And as I think about all of the teams that I've led in the past and current, we have a fairly large contingent of my teams who are very active and dedicated participants with our affinity groups. And then from a development standpoint, I am always monitoring to ensure that we have a fair distribution of opportunities, whether it's learning opportunities or upward mobility, constantly monitoring. So that's really critical as well. And this, I go back to really leveraging data to make sure that you are addressing any problem points or viewpoints that may be contrary to what you're intending, right? And just in terms of overall messaging, I stick by a few things. So I do hold all of my leaders accountable. All of us have to be role models. That is part and parcel number one. The other piece is change starts by meeting where the person is, right? Not everybody's going to be at the same place in terms of embracing DE&I, and you really have to be flexible and meet the person where they are. No one group is more important. No one experience is more important. And then the last thing is like DE&I there's no finish line. You have to keep working it. So I think that's another really, really critical tool, I guess, I use in leading my team to make sure that we've got everybody feeling like their voices are heard and that they're in a safe environment.
Beautiful, Sandra. I really do think D&I has no finish line, and that was beautifully said. Karuna, any thoughts? We lost Karuna's audio, or did
I think I'm on a
lose
mute.
it?
Apologies.
Yes.
Yes, I was just saying what Sandra said there really resonates. I do agree. Everybody's on a journey with D&I and the concepts of D&I, including, you know, when we say that sometimes it's easy to think that, you know, you need to meet the majority where they are. But I think at the same time, it's also important to realize that everybody who's also in the minority, or if we look at gender diversity, I think it's a personal journey for every woman as well. And it's a personal journey for everybody who's in the minority community as well, to recognize where they are at and where they want to be.
Sure, sure. That is very beautifully said. To say it in the same thing in a very different, slightly different way, is that I believe that if a person, no matter where she comes from, where he comes from a minority group or gender, I think if that person has competency up front, and the competency actually shines out, the organizations, the companies are bound to allow this person to move forward and be a part of the organization / company. Because competency is something that sometimes I feel that, you know, just because you belong to a minority group, you expect to be taken along. That is also another perspective. But if you're competent, I don't think anything can stop you.
That's a pretty strong thought, Preeti, and absolutely agree with that. Those were some beautiful points on D&I. You know, I loved what Sandra said. I loved what you said, Karuna, and definitely Preeti agreed that, you know, competency beats any form of, you know, belonging to any group. You know, it's about who you are as a person that everything boils down to at the end. Preeti, my next question is for you. You have managed to build a bridge to mainstream education and leadership, not only for yourself, but also for many others. And you have done this with the tenacity and perseverance. We all know it is easy to be motivated some of the time. It is hard to be motivated all the time. It's very human to slack.
Yeah.
So what's different? What drives you?
That's a wonderful question. I get this question asked all the time. It is the will to be able to stand up and do my bit to be a contributor, and to accept that we all fail, and never you mind, we all continue to fail. I also fail hell of a lot of the times. But what motivates me that I must not spend my life just failing and then leaving it at that, because there's only one life that has come to me. What do I want to make of it? It is up to me. So if I want to live it well, then I have to get up and go and just learn from my mistakes, change a little bit, change around, turn around, and look around. What's the next thing to, you know, maybe that path is for me. So it's just been, I don't lie low for very long, and now it's become a practice. And I teach this to everyone, that giving up is never an option. One has to just carry on, and life actually opens up for you. It just comes and embraces you, that you're not giving up on it, because challenges are everywhere. Everybody has challenges, but we just need to turn them into stepping stones rather than complain. I remember father as a child telling me, and my mother as a child when I was there, a child, that never mind, no matter who says what, you are answerable to yourself. Can you answer and justify to yourself? Then just go ahead and just carry on. And it's worked, and it works all the time.
Thank you, Preeti. And you know what? I can vouch to this panel for Preeti because I did not realize before this panel that I had run into Preeti 27 years back at National Association of Flight. And I can vouch for her tenacity for sure. It's a long journey from that computer lab, Preeti, and I feel very happy and proud to see you here. Karoona, any thoughts?
I think Preeti said that so beautifully, right? I think the resilience to you fall, you get up, you carry on, is so important, isn't it? And I think if you have identified your purpose in life, it helps with getting up every single time and keeping moving in that direction. And it's interesting to think about it also from the perspective of failure, which Preeti just mentioned. I certainly have personally had to learn to accept failure being just part of the experience, because of how we grow up and the standards that we're measured against. You've got to be like, top of your class and be good at this and be good at that, and especially depending on which community you come from. For example, for me, I was always told that the bright people do science, they do maths and physics and chemistry, which I'm sure some of you will relate to, and the not so bright people will go into the arts, right? That's how I grew up. That was the mentality of of my family, and I was held to these standards, and that really helped me be who I am. But at the same time, it did mean that failure for me for a very long time was unacceptable, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And it is something that I have matured into, and I have learned to see it again. As I'm saying, failure is just part of the experience.
Yeah.
You fail, you learn, you carry on, you succeed, then you fail again, then you just keep going.
Actually, just one small word again. Failure is our best teacher. You just need to recognize the failure as your teacher and not your enemy. That's how I put it.
Sandra?
No, I cannot agree more with everything that you have said. And I'm actually reflecting on, I'll be very candid. I have some pretty unpopular news that I have to share with my leadership. Right. And my talking points that I've been thinking about, it's so reflective of what you just said, which is, yes, there's been a failure, but this is only going to make us stronger because we're going to build back and we are going to make a better product because we are learning from our mistakes, right? And I think what I have learned over the decades that I've been in the workforce, it's, the first few times that you fail and you have to pick yourself back up, it's not always the easiest, but the more times that you do it, the easier it gets. And I would say that, from early on through now, what I've tended to do, and Preeti, it's reflective of what you were saying, but I'll use a different word, which is manage what you can control, like compartmentalize what you can control. Once you get that down pat, chip away at the next thing. And then, then you'll be able to pick yourself up, right? You've got to do it in increments. Like you may not be able to just wildly swing from you're down all the way back up in 24 hours.
Yes, sure.
Right.
Sure.
And there are, I'm in human resources and I've seen a lot of different careers and I've seen a lot of, professionals grow here at Comcast. I can't really think of any mistake that's truly not recoverable or irreparable, right? Like, and I think that's always the immediate thought, oh my gosh, can I come back to work tomorrow because of X, Y, Z? And the answer is, honestly, people forget. Memories fade really quickly. So you just have to keep going for the next thing and make it successful. And that's what will be recorded and memorized in time, right? Not so much the mistake.
Sure. You said you used a beautiful word as mistake. Most of us do not want to accept that I have made a mistake. I apologize, and I'm on the way to finding a way of rectifying it, solving it, and I accept what reprimand I have got, and it's fine. It's all right. I'm saying sorry, and let's work together and move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
I think one thing I would add to that as well is it can be quite liberating to remember that our brains are wired to not want to make mistakes, to not fail,
Yeah.
because as they say, we are the children of the ancestors who actually fought the tigers and won. Yeah, and we are the whole human race is wired to stay away from things that cause you discomfort and cause you that feel like a threat. And and we have to remember when we make a mistake, or we've made a failure, that our whole body is geared towards pushing it away rather than necessarily embracing it. And we've got to train ourselves to do that. And as Sandra is saying, the more we do it, the easier it seems to get.
Certainly.
Those were some beautiful thoughts. Talking of compartmentalizing, my next question is for you, Karuna. How do women's traditional roles and responsibilities influence their performance in the workplace? And how can companies help navigate that?
Okay. I think going back to what Preeti was saying earlier, I think competence shines through. So I think that is a fact. It does. Where it gets a bit tricky is where you have organizations and you have workplaces that value, I think, when you're talking about gender diversity, that value availability over outcomes. And there are a number of workplaces today that will reward people who work the very long hours over weekends and go above and beyond from a time perspective and making themselves available to the management and leadership, etc., etc. And that behavior is encouraged and it is rewarded. And sometimes you'll even see that these are the people who get promoted. But if you do that, by default, what happens is you just eliminate the part of the demographic that cannot provide that kind of availability. And that is something that I consistently see. And that part of the demographic tends to be women usually. And the reason that is the case is because women, regardless of which country in the world you're in, we still have, from a social perspective, a role that is understood and predefined to a certain degree. Yeah. And those things don't go away if you become CEO, is what I'm saying. And therefore, what I think what I'd love for organizations to realize is that women have still got to juggle their social role as well as what's required of them at work. And on a day-to-day basis, that can be quite tricky. And we typically will see that also in the context of, especially women who have children, when the child is not well and has to stay at home, who usually takes a day off? Yeah, and I don't want to generalize here, but I think in most cases it does tend to be the women who has to pick up the social role of being a mother, a daughter, a sister, etc., alongside all the demands of the job. Yeah, so I think we have a way to go still before organizations. I work in technology, which is very, very heavily male dominated, and I see this day in, day out, and it is something that would be good for people to be more mindful of and more considerate of.
Sure.
Thank you, Karoona.
I just can't help myself, but yes, I think we need to project this entire role of woman, a professional as well as her personal life. I think this just proves that we are way ahead of the male gender. So that strength needs to be projected more strongly.
Thank you, Preeti.
I agree with you. I do think, and all of us are leaders of teams on this call, and we really do have to serve as role models I would say, Karoona, you know, the environment that you described, I grew up in, right? So the various companies that I've been at, it was, you know, it's been hours on the books that really counted. But I for sure know that there are many, many moments where it's the hours that actually cause less productivity, in fact. And somebody early in my career had said to me, a working mother, in a senior role who was managing a team of like 150 people, she said, it's interesting how, you know, when I work, today I must leave the office at 3. I have to leave at 3, non-negotiable. I have to get someplace. And you know, it's 2:30 and I've accomplished just as much as I would have yesterday and I stayed until 6, right? So it's all, if you know, you can channel your energy towards a shorter period of time and then also have a more productive work-life balance, and agree with all of you about, you know, we need to be supportive of that. I've made a very, very conscious effort of containing my hours in the office in a leadership role, right? I don't want folks to think that you have to stay just for the sake of staying. Sometimes you know, it's a hard habit to break when you grew up in that kind of environment, but it is so important to set the tone.
I think there is a theory somewhere. I can't remember the name of it, but it says something along the lines of work will expand to fill time. So it doesn't matter how much time you throw at it, the work will expand to fill it. And it is something definitely that I think needs more mindful, more deliberate, more conscious management in companies. And for me, I think we'll have got there when we stop having young women, first-time mums, panicking about what is maternity leave going to mean for me. I have so many young ladies in my team that get so nervous leading up to maternity leave because they've built their identity around their career up to that point, and suddenly they're about to go on maternity leave and have this magical period in their life of having a child, but they are stuck on, is this going to damage my career? Because we just don't have the critical mass in the working population at the moment where this would be a non-issue for them. They would know that, you know, as a woman, you work, you have a career, you go and have a baby, you have your maternity leave. When you come back, it's the norm to come back and continue your career. That is not how it's perceived at the moment. And I think, yeah, I think we'll know we've been successful when young mums don't have to go through this slightly traumatic period of going on maternity leave and what's going to happen to their career.
That's beautiful, Karuna, and I'm so glad you brought up that topic because that goes right into my next question for Sandy. Sandy has been a big champion for bringing people back to work after a gap in their career. And so my question is, 2020 was a landmark year in many ways. Globally, humanity was closely tied together in its emotions and anguish over a natural phenomena in a way that most of us had not witnessed before. It changed how we thought, how we felt, and how we conducted ourselves in all spheres of our existence, especially our work life. Sandy, you have been a strong champion for both people returning back to work after a gap or needing more flexibility in their work life, way before COVID ever came into existence. So, as a leader, you know, what has made you more, you know, sensitive to this requirement at workplace, and how did you adapt this into your work environment and work behavior?
Yeah, so thank you. 2020 was quite a year. It was quite a year. And it was certainly an inflection, I think, for many of us. So on people who have had gaps in their careers, when I think about that community, and it's, you know, whether it's somebody who's pursuing their passion, somebody who is caring for a loved one or a child, or even self-care, right? I agree with you that they have a unique challenge because they may be dismissed because of that gap in or time away from the corporate environment. I do really strongly feel that companies need to be more creative and target this workforce sector. Similarly, like we at Comcast have a pretty robust program for veterans, right? And transitioning veterans back to the workforce. And we should be able to leverage very similar tactics with folks who are coming back to the corporate environment after time away. At one of our operating companies, NBC Universal, there's a program called Act Two, which is a program specifically designed for professionals coming back to the workplace. On the cable side, we have a parents affinity group that's been working towards transitional programs for returning parents. And I do think that this population, they can present a really strong competitive advantage for companies. For example, a lot of the folks who are transitioning, they have much needed skills that we may not have, enough of in the workplace. And I do think that shepherding the return, with robust programs generates loyalty and then investment between the employee and the company that you may not find in any other workforce sector. So just in terms of my growth as a leader, in this regard, the pandemic, so 2020 all the way through the present, it really gave me a valuable gift. I am much, much more open-minded about remote work and flexibility, where we were very successful. All of you have been very successful in learning how to operate in a pure video setting. And I think it's, you can carry out a majority of your role, because let's face it, like a lot of our role, it's transactional, right? Ultimately it's transactional, and you can carry out a lot of transactional work through video. There are some times when moments matter, where you have to get together, you have to be live. And so long as you as a team have operating rhythms to have that, then, you'll be successful. So right now my team is 2/3 remote, so entirely remote, and the other 1/3 is hybrid. And that hybrid environment that we have it allows for the flexibility that folks need for both professionally as well as personally. And I think, back to that gift, we can do a lot more now in terms of all hands meetings. I'm thinking about like pre-pandemic, we couldn't really have all hands meetings on a monthly basis because it was too difficult to assemble hundreds of people. Now it's like, oh, let's just have it. And we've been able to be much more communicative. And we've been able to hire across many more geographies, which ultimately leads to a lot more diversity. Right. And, kind of back to the original question, yes, I am a strong proponent. We do need people returning to the workforce after a gap from the corporate environment. But companies, I think, are at this point still not as aggressive as I think they should be. And even within Comcast, we have some programs, but we need to do more.
Karoona, any thoughts? It goes back to what you said.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think part of that is to do with building this culture of measuring people by the outcomes they're delivering, rather than when they're working, where they're working from, etc., which is quite a big cultural shift, I think, in the corporate world. Vodafone, where I work, is actually pretty cutting edge in terms of encouraging people back into work, especially women. After maternity leave, we have a number of policies that, for example, allows them to come back part-time for 6 months before they then choose whether to go on part-time or come back full-time, etc. So I think from that perspective, the women who work for Vodafone really appreciate those policies. And it's interesting. I'm thinking about other people who go out of work for a period of time and have that gap, as Sandra is saying. Are we doing enough to help them come back into the office? Because absolutely, their skills are very much needed.
Any thoughts, Preeti?
Yes. The moment, especially I'm speaking about women, and the moment they feel welcome and they feel encouraged that they are welcome back to work, they come back with the zeal, and their productivity really can increase manyfold, because they're so happy that they're able to have their baby, they're able to do their personal responsibilities, and the company is welcoming their capability. So it all boils down that they will bring back a lot more productivity to the company. And I think all companies should just go ahead and encourage this.
Yeah, and imagine if this was the norm, right? Imagine that.
Yeah.
That was the situation, and no one had to actually think about, am I come back and not remember what I used to do? Have I lost my skills, etc.?
No, that's
yeah.
Sure. I think we are just trying to put these thoughts. I mean, these thoughts are there in the environment that you've forgotten how to go to work. How can they be possible? It's not possible.
Well, maybe it's like riding a bike, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can come back without a worry, without nervousness, without a inhibition, and without knowing that knowing that you're welcome, I think the productivity really would be so much enhanced.
Agreed, and I really think, Karoona, that was a very important top point that you made. Output is what should matter, not the number of hours you're spending sitting on the desk, or toiling on, the peer pressure and staying back because everybody else is staying back. So, no, great thought. Preeti, my next question is for you. Leadership is a lifelong journey. It does not end with formal training or role. What are some of the tools that you employ to ensure that you're keeping up with the times, especially in today's world? What role, if any, you see technology play in how leadership styles should evolve?
Well, yes. I think all leaders here, I think in all of us are leaders in some way or the other. And I'm sure leaders would agree with me that definitely we need to remember our foundations, where we learned from, what has been learned. But the learning process for a leader has to be top notch. And rule number one, that continue to learn. And today it's become so easy, so simple to learn, because technology is at everybody's fingertips, including the visually impaired. As you know, I am totally blind, and technology has made it so much more easier for me to keep myself up to date. And then that always helps to put in new ways and new set of tactics to be a good leader and help others to take my place as leaders. So it's very, very important, and technology has played, and I think it's going to further play as it is evolving and becoming accessible to all of us. I think it's very, very important to keep up and a little bit ahead of what's going to come and what's happening. It's very, very important to learn. I think if you're not a person who can learn from everything and everyone and from all kinds of facets, I doubt that you are fit to be a leader, or we'll definitely not be able to have our teams working to their best abilities. There is a lot of norms, as we all know. It's not only just something that we can write down or spell out, but yes, I think certainly leaders need to be able to continue to learn. Also accept that, oh my God, I did not know this. Okay, I need to learn this, and go back and learn and come back. That also needs to be, the humbleness also needs to be one of the parts, because you may be able to learn from a fresher. So you don't need to shut your doors. So I feel it's very, very important for a leader to do that.
Thank you, Preeti. Any thoughts, Karoona?
I think I agree. I think you can't shut your doors to learning as a leader. For me personally, one of the things that I have used in my career to keep building leadership skill is that I've never done a role for more than 2 years. And whenever I've moved roles, I've moved into something that had a completely new, different dimension, whether that was, completely new industry, completely new type of role, new country, new level in the organization, etc. So it's a matter of almost being willing to push yourself out of your comfort zone on a fairly regular basis to just get those new experiences that you've not had before and just drive through. The other thing that for me is perhaps more recent but has made me grow immensely as a leader is a deeper understanding of mindfulness practices, which I think absolutely has such a big role to play in leadership today, whether it's in the corporate world or elsewhere. I think there is more than ever a need for leaders to be aware of themselves and their impact, and how their behavior creates certain types of environments that people feel stressed in, happy in, you know, how you create high performing teams, etc. So yeah, I completely agree with what Preeti is saying. The key is really to have that almost like an obsession with learning and learning and learning, and whether it's from somebody who is, you know, a lot more seasoned as a leader, or somebody who is very fresh as a leader. I think there's learnings all over the place really to go after.
Yeah, awesome, Karuna. I think higher consciousness always makes you a better leader, a better person, and just more successful. I think most successful people are very conscious of themselves and aware of who they are. Sandra?
I totally agree with everything that you've been saying. At Comcast, we have a couple words that we use with this, which is growth mindset. So growth mindset is a really, really big deal here, and it's part of our DNA. So we really do instill that in everybody who comes on board. And, you know, it could be, you know, diversity and cultural intelligence. It could be product intelligence. It could be, you know, relationship management, all of the above, where we are, to what everybody's been saying, just asking people to stretch as much as they possibly can. And a little bit of it does kind of go back to, it's a very similar feeling at times to just, you know, making mistakes, which we talked about earlier. It's this place of discomfort. And the more you practice, the more you'll become accustomed to that feeling. And then you'll realize, okay, you can succeed, and you just have to, you know, really continue the building blocks to get to where you want to be.
Thank you, Sandra. Sumit and Ashmeet, I'm very aware of time. I know we have 16 minutes. I don't want to leave the audience out of it. So I do want to, you know, remind the audience that we are here to answer your questions as well. I don't need to have ownership of all the questions. I do have a few more for my panelists, but if anybody wants to put a question out, would love to have the panelists, you know, talk about it and, you know, answer your questions. So please go ahead and post your questions in the chat box if you have any, and we'd be happy to take them. We have some great comments coming in, by the way. I hope Karuna and Sandra, you're able to read them, and Preeti, I'll make sure that these come out to you as well. You know,
Yes.
unless your little helper is already helping you on the side, we'll make sure that
that fellow actually makes so much noise. I'd rather at the moment attend the session than look hear the comments later.
Sure, absolutely, Preeti. So audience, please. Oh yeah, sure. Absolutely, Debbie. So Debbie is asking, can we ask Preeti about Dream It, Do It?
Yes, certainly. Dream it, do it. You need to first be absolutely confident and go ahead and dream. Unless we are, as human beings, we are scared to dream beyond a particular point. So it is so important. For example, I just want to share one small anecdote which may make you know, more sense to answer the question. I always loved writing, but when I was at school, I was just 13 and grade 8. And the class was asked to write an essay. I also wrote one essay. I'm not able to remember what topic it was. And my English teacher, she took one look at it. She made a big cross on that, and she threw my copy or notebook into the dustbin in front of the entire class. I vowed that day that one day I'm going to be a published writer. And today, 2 of my autobiographies are published. One by Rowley Books and the other one by my dream publisher, Hay House. So it may take time to accomplish your dream, but please dare to dream. If you don't dare to dream, then the do it will never happen. So dream it, and to finish it, it's icing on the cake. Do it.
Beautiful, Preeti. Thank you so much. Karoona and Sandra, since it's the theme, I'm sure we want to hear your point of views as well. Dream it, do it.
I'm just still digesting how beautifully Preeti put that. It is so true, and I think you're very inspiring as well, Preeti.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Because most of us, and especially women, we don't even dare to dream somehow. So please dream, and the do it, please remember and just continue. It happens. It will happen.
Well, you know what? I'm going to ask the next question that's been posted here. What strategy? I did not know this, Karoona. I should go back and read your bio. What strategy worked best for Karoona to break the glass ceiling while she moved ahead every 2 years? Chaitanya, thanks for asking that question. Karoona, you're on the spot.
Wow, you're crediting me with a lot more planning than I actually did in my career here. I think before I get to strategy, I think there is one thing that I would say, and something that I'm very grateful of, is that throughout my career, I've had people that I call my guardian angels. These are the people who have agreed to take a risk with me. So as I've said, every time I've moved role, it's been drastically in some way different. And for that to happen, there is a boss somewhere that's accepting to take a risk that you're going to face into this very different thing compared to anything you've done before. And I think she's going to be successful at it. And I think it's important to find those people in your career. They are great allies along the way, and they are the people who really make the moves happen, really. Now, coming back to the question, what strategies have I used? My goodness, I think in terms of dealing with that space you get into when you get into a new role and it's fresh and it's new and you don't know, what has really helped me is just the hunger to know more, which is really something that I feel has driven me throughout my career, is just the need to know more and to know what else I can do. And it's important. I'm not saying that needs to be everybody's motivation, but I think if you know what is your motivation, hold that like your torch, basically, and keep feeding that, and that is what will help you move ahead. As a woman, again, in technology, I will be honest, every start of a role feels like a bit of a mountain to climb, because you have got to, or I have felt, I can't speak for every woman out there, but I have certainly felt that I needed to work extra hard to get the credibility so that people would know that I'm here because of what I can do effectively. Yeah. So that first starting time in a role has always been very critical, and I think that's probably a strategy that I've used time and again. But I think for any young ladies in the audience who are looking to build a career going forward, or who are already building a career, one thing I would say is that
we lost you at the cliffhanger, Karoona. You'll have to tell us that one major piece of advice, and then speak.
You just have to guess now. Apologies. I think I had a little blip in my network connection. Yes, I was just saying to any young ladies or anybody in the audience really who are looking to build a career, I have found that it got to a point where I just became so comfortable with who I was as a woman, what my heritage is, what my gender is, etc., that it just became a lot easier. So there is a little bit of that in the beginning as you start building that career. This, as one of my friends always says, she thinks women are still very grateful to be in the workplace. There is an element of gratitude that's still there that makes us kind of still feel like we need to justify why we're here, right? Because we've been allowed in here. But I have found that you get to a point in your career where you're like, I'm here, I deserve to be here. It's completely normal that I'm here.
Yes.
And from that
Certainly.
point on, it gets a bit easier.
Certainly. We deserve to be where we are.
Beautiful, beautiful. Sandra, I think this question really suits you. This is question from Sumit. It's question from another channel, as Sumit phrases it out here. One dream that you have been working on and is still work in progress. What makes you keep going at it?
So I am constantly working on trying to be as best of a leader as I possibly can be. And, you know, kind of along those lines, there's another question about, you know, what advice would you give to, what one piece of advice would you give to new leadership? And the one piece, I'm going to say two pieces, right? One is listening, which we've already talked about. And I really have tried as best as I possibly can to be a, you know, a fantastic listener to my team. But then I think, you know, back to the pandemic, because I had some time to reflect on the pandemic over this call, is one really important element that I took away was you really have to know your team as people. And they're just not teammates who are with you, who are, you know, on the company's payroll, who help you and your company be productive. They're human beings at the end of the day. So like it's really important to get to know your teammates as people and not just, you know, a traditional, you know, definition of a worker. And I think when it comes to new leadership, you may not think that that is like the number one goal because you're a new leader, you want to get stuff done. Therefore, you know, let's just have all these agenda-based meetings and, you know, not have any casual conversations. I think that's one of the worst things you can do. So back to like what I am striving, I really want to be a fantastic leader and for that to be my brand.
I love that dream. I really hope, you know, Sandra, that you keep being successful at it.
Thank you.
We'll take one last question, and Sumit, then I'm going to turn over the panel back to you for the closing comments. So this is for all you amazing ladies. What was the most significant barrier in your career that you have come across, and how have you overcome it? Let's make it a little difficult. Let's make it a one-word answer. One barrier, one answer to overcoming it. I'm getting a little, you know, bold out here.
Okay. So
Who goes first?
I can
Sure,
go
Preeti.
first.
Sure,
I can go first. I would need just two words: lack of education and my total blindness. This was the biggest barrier. And I answer is how I overcame it was embraced both with complete sincerity, honesty, and worked on it, and actually became capable to do everything along with these barriers, and just went on, surged ahead.
That's beautiful. I'm looking at you both, Sandy and Karoona.
Hey, yeah, I was just going to say, I think I'll answer that again, just going back to the topic of the panel as a, you know, women in senior leadership position. I think one of the most significant barriers that I've come across and probably still is there, not just for me, I think for a lot of women, is again in very male-dominated environments. I think we're much better now at making our voices heard as women. However, when things heat up in a meeting, the ability to make your voice heard as a woman becomes much smaller. And it is quite hard to be able to still break through without adopting a man's persona and a man's behavior. And I have found that to be a constant struggle throughout my career. This, you know, how do you balance being soft but firm and strong at the same time?
Amazing. Sandy.
Yeah, I would say I go back to authenticity, which is the barrier that I faced was bringing my full self to the workplace and every so often I'll continue to pause, right? And I think, Karoona, you spoke to it. It took some time for you. It continues to take time for me to really, really, get comfortable in my own skin, everything of who I am, up to and including like the food that I enjoy, right? Like I think, I was hardwired earlier in my career to, just like you said, Karoona and Preeti, just adapt certain ways of performing, behaving. And it's taken me some time, but I've gotten a lot better at it, but it has been a barrier over the years.
Can definitely relate to that, Sandra.
You are such an amazing panel. Thank you so much. I have absolutely enjoyed having a chance to moderate this. Karoona, Sandra, and Preeti, I loved doing this. Thank you so much, and I'm sure our audience loved it. I'm turning this back to you, Sumit. Thank you for giving us a chance to be here on your series.
Absolutely. No, it's such a pleasure, Sandra. Anna says, Sandra, I'm your fan, totally agree. I can say I'm a fan of all four of you. Such inspirational stories, way of life. We started with Dream It. In between, you gave us so many tools on how to go by it, and then just go do it. And you all make it sound so easy. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Believe it or not, when we let these series go online and people come and watch it over and over again, we get so many questions back. With your permission, we'll share those questions with you, and create an environment where you can continue to mentor many of the young leaders who are looking up to you. So thank you once again for being on this show, and really, really appreciate your time and inspiring us all.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.